Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am here today for another episode of the Real Estate Leadership Legacy podcast, and I'm super excited to be joined by Weiting. Weiting, how are you?
I am doing very good, Alex. It's a Friday. Kids are still in daycare, and it's just the beginning of the day. What about you?
Very good. Well, I got kids in school and it's March break right now, so so we don't have that luxury at this moment, but otherwise, I'm doing wonderful on this fine Friday. So I wanted to give a quick introduction as to who you are, and then we're going to get right into it. So to tell you guys listening right now, Weiting's entrepreneurial journey began with a costly lesson in rental property management, where she experienced losses exceeding $35,000 due to a non-paying tenant. So she was determined to prevent others from facing similar challenges, and she built OpenRoom to pave the future towards transparent and connected rental ecosystem, which is amazing. Drawing from her extensive background in software product management spanning education, telecommunications, insurance, and artificial intelligence, Weiting has become a trusted advisor to founders or venture-backed companies. Beyond the tech sphere, Weiting managed properties for over a decade and made significant contributions to community leadership. She served on the board of Rotary District 770 and chaired various organizational committees. And you balance your professional endeavors with being a parent of two kids under two. Alongside thousands of other parents, she was awarded participation trophies in innovative. Oh, it cut out there. Do you know the last word there? Innovative.
Oh, innovative solutions, patience, and a whole bunch of other things that you have medals for, too.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I appreciate you filling in the blanks there. So I wanted, and just before of course, I want to hear your story of how this whole thing started. But to those people listening, the assumption is that you might be a property manager yourself or a property owner and you're managing your own properties. If you have not checked out OpenRoom yet, this is a must do for you guys. So we use it consistently. We have a property management company, and we are consistently checking every single one of our potential tenant candidates on OpenRoom. It is literally just part of our checklist now. And then if something happens, we of course are contributing to OpenRoom and the community there, because I think that there are so few resources for landlords here in Ontario, especially, of what we can do to protect ourselves and to insulate ourselves from just the atrocious LTB regulations and landlord rights. So honestly, our gratitude to you for setting this up. So I want to learn a little bit about how this whole thing started. Let's go back to the beginning, where this $35,000 non-payment of rent. Give me the scoop. Like, what happened?
If we rewind back to 2020, it was the pandemic. I knew that
Hmm.
many institutions, stores were shut down, and including my tenants' automotive shop. But I think they were one of the essential businesses, so I'm not sure if they actually closed down or not. But during that time, that was when a lot of the trends of non-payment of rent really started. Okay.
Yes.
So at that time, I had not asked my tenants to move out yet. It was more of giving them heads up that eventually I'm going to need to move in because I want to grow my family. Alex, as you mentioned in my bio, I've got two kids under two right now. So if we rewind back a little bit during that time, it was my time to grow my family. I wanted to move from a downtown condo to my property, which was supposed to be my primary residence in Vaughan. So at that time, I had given them advance notice and then actually issued the form a year later. And I said, hey, it's time for me to move in. But my tenants had told me I'm not moving out, and I'm also not going to pay rent either. Alex, it baffled me. I didn't know that you could say anything like that, let alone like actually not pay
The,
rent.
the
I,
gumption. Yeah.
yeah, and I didn't even know that the landlord and tenant board existed. That's an aside which we can definitely talk about all the mistakes that I've made. But that's how it got started. Is I wanted to move in, then landed at the LTB multiple times because of this situation. And then after the LTB, you get court orders or tribunal decisions. So from there, I held these documents in my hand and I said, this is public information. Why is it not easily accessible by the public? And that's where I turned to my co-founder, who's also my husband. And I said, we've got to do something about this because we build software for a living. Like, we have to do something, even if it's just this one page application, which it ended up being when we were on parental leave after we
Mhm.
got possession of our house. We put up this one pager with a button that said upload court orders, and then that's where we rallied the community to upload. But originally, it just started with 5 of my orders on the website, and that's how OpenRoom came to be.
It's amazing. Honestly, you've saved us from a number of different situations where you got to imagine, like right now, for example, we have 10 lease listings on the board. We're managing like 150 properties. And anytime an application comes in, when we run it through, it's almost like it's like a pleasant surprise because it takes X amount of no's to get to the yes kind of thing, but it's so it builds your confidence that it's like, oh my lord, thank God somebody's looking out, somebody's doing this. So we're very purposeful in terms of contributing to the Open Room platform, and so I think it's amazing. Do you know how many active users you guys have currently?
Active users, like on a daily basis, we get anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 people actively on it, searching every single day right now. So that to us, we were like, oh my gosh, that is really awesome. And we started from a grassroots movement, right? Because it was just myself and my partner, and then maybe a couple people in our circle. And then who really, really pushed us was the Small Ownership Landlords of Ontario, the Solo group. If folks on who are listening to this don't know about it, join an organization like Solo so that you can be more involved in the community, right? Learn about what's going on. So solo.ca. Anyway, so their board of directors told everybody about OpenRoom, and then everybody then started contributing into OpenRoom like yourself, Alex. And that's how so many people have gotten to know about OpenRoom.
Yeah, I don't even remember where we found out about it. I think it was my wife Kaylee initially who brought it to my attention, and so I'm good friends with Kayla Andrade, who runs the Ontario Landlords Watch, and so she's of course always advocating. I'm sure you guys have connected in the past as well, right? But she's a huge advocate for landlord support and things like that. So that's amazing. So tell me now, like, what's the trajectory for you guys in terms of where do you guys hope to expand to? What does the future look like for OpenRoom?
The first immediate thought here, Alex, for your listeners, is that what we're trying to do is build towards that transparency and connectedness in the future of the rental ecosystem. So we started in Ontario, but now we're expanding to Canada wide to help out even those who are in BC, in the Atlantic regions, in Alberta. People are sharing their stories and their court orders with OpenRoom so that everybody, in the case of someone moving from one province to another, we can then build that transparency across the nation. And that's what we're trying to get to. But why are we even doing this? And I want to make sure that everybody understands that it's not just a landlord tool or a housing provider tool, that great tenants also use this to see what's going on with their future landlords. Have they been involved with maintenance issues? Have they been doing bad faith evictions? If we can get our hands on these documents, we share it broadly with the rest of the community. So it's not just a housing provider tool. Okay. And so at the end of the day, we're trying to get to a mission that is affordable housing. Right now, we see so many, like thousands of people pulling out of the industry. And Alex, I'm surprised that you and your wife are still part of this industry, which I love. Just that so many people, thousands are moving out. And you know this too. In your circle, I'm sure people are leaving this industry in Ontario, in Canada in general, right? And that, what does that mean? That restricts the supply of housing out there. So what we're trying to do is if people can have more confidence to bring out their properties because they can do and trust better tenants who are going to be living in their properties, and they're going to bring out their units, which will then increase the supply that is available to meet the demand. And it's not just about so much housing out there. It's about affordable type of housing, like your basements, your lane suites, the not so luxurious suites, because we know there are many, many thousands of condos that are left vacant, but those I wouldn't even consider to be affordable suites, right? Those are more luxurious suites. So yes.
Yeah, no, honestly, it's interesting to see, young couples who are getting into these massive properties. I remember when I was first looking at houses, I had a good friend of mine out in Kitchener who bought a property. It's a 3,000 square foot property. Him and his wife were really excited about it. And I remember going to visit, like, we'd hang out or whatever. But at one point I came to visit and I had bought in a place a couple streets away from him. And I was living in the basement of my own place, and I had rented out upstairs. And I said, like, how much of this property do you guys actually use? Because it was him and his wife. This is before they had kids. And I remember I had an unfinished basement, and he's like, "Yeah, I think I've been in the basement of my own house maybe twice." And it's like, yeah, like, we have a kitchen, we have the master bedroom, we have, a ensuite bathroom, and then maybe the office. But so when you're looking at how much square footage there are in some of these houses and how much could be utilized, how to optimize it, and especially when properties are becoming unaffordable, there's this perfect scenario for young people to offset a bit of their costs, help provide, reasonable rental rates with like a basement suite or something like that. And people are just not willing to do it because of the nightmare stories. And we get it all the time. It's like, have you ever thought of doing this? Nope, won't touch it with a 10-foot pole. Or you get people who are just so jaded by the experience. So for another kind of brief story is we partnered with a woman in Hamilton who had a triplex of hers, and all three tenants came together during COVID and decided to not pay her rent.
Ah,
And so
okay.
she racked up $58,000 worth of unpaid rent. And she was like trying to figure out the whole ordeal. And I remember like she's putting the notices at the board, and they're telling her that she did it incorrectly or whatever the case may be. And it was just like a single tear would roll down my cheek. But eventually we partnered, and she's like, "I can't deal with this anymore. Just buy my house." I was like, "Actually, let's not buy it. We'll partner on it, and let me help retain some of your equity." So she got all her money back out, and she's still part owner with us. So it was a big win for her. But regardless, to go through that tumultuous experience, it's like that could sink people, and I know it has.
Yes. Yeah. And when you say 50-ish thousand dollars and some change, that doesn't even surprise me because right now it's almost the norm, right? I've heard cases, well, not even heard. I see the cases come across my desk because this is what I look at every single day. We get about 1,000 to 2,000, depending on the month, of court orders coming into the system that people share with OpenRoom every single month. So when I read these, like we're seeing people who are racking up about like 100,000 is not abnormal. I've seen
Wild.
more frequently in the 50s and the 75s, and these are people who have tenants right now, Alex, that are being way more sophisticated, the
Hmm.
professional tenants. And when I say professional tenants, people often say, well, why are we calling them professional tenants? Well, the thing is, they're professionals because professionals know how to game the system. They know the legislation, they know the details, they've studied it, they read up on it, so they know how to work it to get
Hmm.
away with certain things. And
I, I'm
so,
a
yeah.
I'm a firm believer that, especially when it comes to the LTB, I can appreciate that there is a wide range of issues that can exist. However, non-payment of rent from an N4 is the basic bare bones of what is expected in a rental situation. And Canada is or Ontario, let's say, is all about legislation. Let's cap rents. Let's ban bad faith eviction. All these things that are obviously they're protecting the tenants' rights. Yet when there's a poor mom and pop shop type individual who has one property that they've leased out that's now being hijacked, and they've racked up that amount of money. I mean, that's there's no recourse for that. And so what I've always said, and this is actually Kayla who had mentioned this in the past, is that when N4s should not have to go through like an adjudication process. N4s are cut and dry. It's just numbers. You need somebody who's competent enough to say, okay, do you owe X amount of rent? Yes. Why haven't you paid it? And if you haven't paid it, are you planning to pay it? Let's put you on a payment plan. If you're not going to follow it, then you're out. And that would take the backlog, because I think it's like 80+% of all the notices that go into the LTB right now are for non-payment of rent issues.
I think it was around 60 or so percentage.
Okay,
If we
so
look
I
at,
would trust
yeah,
your
yeah,
numbers more
it
than
was,
I.
but it's still significant. And I got
Hmm.
to give kudos to the landlord and tenant board because there has been improvements. Let's
Yeah.
caveat that. Because when I was going through it, the wait was about, what, 8 months or so to even get a hearing. And then
Yeah.
the hearing, after the hearing, it takes about, what, 2 to 4 weeks before you can get issued the actual order. And then you apply for the sheriff. So
Yeah.
now to get to that first hearing, we're looking at roughly around 3 to 4 months. So it is getting better, little bit better. No, still not good enough, but getting better. And all that is to say is that when it comes to the N4, and I think what you're referring to is that direct request, similar to what BC has in terms of unpaid rent, and then you can submit a direct request without going to a hearing. There was a petition that was going around in Ontario. Christopher Seepy was the individual that had started that petition that accumulated at about 41,000 signatures, because it was advocating for something like this. But I think the way that it was presented to legislators, it kind of got nowhere, which is unfortunate. But I do know that there are more individuals like Kayla that you're talking about that is still continuing to advocate on this. I think maybe eventually it will come, but there are some nuances where landlords could take advantage of this, which is why government is scared to implement something as cut and dry like that.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I can appreciate it, but like we are currently in the process of one, not myself personally, but it's my mother-in-law. She had bought a property to move into, similar to kind of your situation. In July, it'll be 2 years. She's
Whoa.
been waiting, and she's still. The last hearing date was in October. Um, she went to the hearing date, and the tenants showed up with two paralegals and a lawyer or something like that, and they said that um, they needed to cross-examine a bunch of people, myself included, because they found out that, of course, I run a property management company and we buy properties. So I was calling my wife, everybody, and so they said that they needed 2 hours to sufficiently cross-examine everybody. So the adjudicator at the time was like, "Well, this seems very cut and dry. Here's the paperwork, but if you need 2 hours, I got to give you 2 hours for this. So we'll adjourn the hearing again." So, I mean, it's what is it today, March 14th, and there's still no hearing date.
Wow. I remember you telling me about this case last month.
Hmm.
So it's still continuing on
Yeah,
right now. And it's where your mom wants to go back to live in her property.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
to me, it's like it's great. And so the thought would be is that if we can take all these non-payment of rent issues that are clogging up the system, whether I trust your numbers, as I said, more than mine, it's the 60%. If that can be mediated in a more efficient manner, with someone who isn't necessarily, are they still appointing adjudicators? Is that how it works?
Are you saying is the LTB increasing the number of adjudicators hired? They're always hiring right now. That
Yeah.
that is the I think the easiest and most neutral solution to clearing the backlog, because
Yeah.
it's like it doesn't come with controversy when you're trying to increase the number of people hired.
Hmm.
Okay. Well, when you're trying to create policies such as this mediated or direct request type of legislation, then it becomes way more contested and it will have a lot of media attention and it doesn't look good on all. But maybe it will happen because, we got a new, well, returning government that is here for another 4 years. So maybe there will be some more work to be done here in Ontario.
Yeah, I'm curious to see. There was big promises there, but from our family's side, I guess, we have a lot of these conversations about it, behind closed doors. It's still incredibly frustrating, and the fact that this can even happen, just like you've experienced, of course, is still absolutely flabbergasting.
Yeah,
So,
the more that I learn about this industry or the loopholes of, say, credit history reporting into the credit bureaus, non-payment of rent, I just cannot believe that this is the way that it is. The more that I learn, the more scared I am
mhm,
about humanity, I suppose, Alex. I'm trying to be more positive because I'm always more of the optimistic side of things. But
mhm.
sometimes I sit here and I question what is going on. It is very difficult in 2025.
Yeah. Are you involved, like having such a prominent platform and being kind of one of the center points or one of the peaks of like uh, honest kind of reporting, I guess is fundamentally what it is. Are you involved in the lobbying side of things? Are you involved in like talking to government officials and kind of push certain data or certain insights to people that can actually affect change?
Absolutely, Alex. We are not a lobbying group by any means. We are a software company at the basics, but we educate a lot of the
Mhm.
individuals that are out there. Because remember, earlier on in the conversation, it was all about Weiting, who didn't even know about the landlord and tenant board, and I bet many small landlords don't know about it or don't know about how it works. And that's okay. If you're listening to this, you can always start now. It's not
Mhm.
too late, right? Get started, get learning about it. But yes, we've got data that we share. We speak to ministers and different MPPs, depending on what we're trying to do or what we're trying to share with them, and what they need from us, or even providing data to, say, solo or other groups that need data. So we are always out there, even with the media too.
It seems like it's, not to sound super pessimistic about that whole process, but the truth is, and without sounding controversial, but the squeaky wheel gets the oil, right? When you have a mass populace of tenants, um, any politician, I think, is going to aim to appease the populace, right? Because that's how they're going to end up retaining more votes. So if you have a big population of renters, it's, I can appreciate it's hard to move against that as a politician. Do you kind of sense that as well? Because that's kind of the conversations that we kind of come across as well in these networking groups when people are sharing their opinions.
Yeah. I hear you. I hear you. And naturally, that is very much in line with how people would be thinking, because every politician would like more votes.
Mhm.
What I do want to comment on here is that many people will make comments that are coming out of anger or from their personal experience, and they're not looking at all of the other side effects or byproducts that could come
Mhm.
out from that decision. Say, for example, a policy change such as a direct request. Think about the people who will be hurt in slumlords that are submitting false documents into the LTB. So
Mhm.
that's just like a very out there example, but it's when lobbying groups sometimes when they go to government and present these one-sided uh, proposals, it doesn't give the government much to work with because they have to consider all of their constituents in their area. And
Mhm.
that's why it's difficult. So when landlords go out there and they try to pressure various like groups to do certain things, sometimes they're not looking at the bigger picture of how they could do it without, say, the media coming down and eating the politicians alive. You
Yeah.
know how media works. Like
Oh yeah.
they're ruthless. And while some change could be good, very, very good for investors on one side, it's detrimental. It could be detrimental to someone's livelihood on the other side. So when
Yeah.
we make these proposals, we, as in our collective rental ecosystem, we have to think about what happens to each player and the side effects.
Yeah, no, I can totally see that. I just I tend to lean conservative in the side of like
Mhm.
less regulation the better. And
Yeah,
when
I
you
hear you.
over-regulate,
Yeah,
then
yeah.
you end up shackling people, and then case in point, what ends up happening is people leave. Like we're we're more focused right now in terms of our own portfolio and with our partners who we raise capital from. We're more apt to be investing in Alberta. Like we just bought a second
Mhm.
building out there, or in the U.S. in landlord-friendly states, so that we avoid it. Because I mean, even with property values right now, unless you're somebody who has incredibly deep pockets, especially in the larger scale multifamily space, there's no chance for anybody to excel up into that space because you can't execute on a business plan properly. You can't,
I hear
if a
you.
property's falling apart and you need to change out the boiler and the windows and the
Yeah.
balconies and the roof and whatever, you buy it, you have to put all that capital expenditure into it, and all the rents are staying consistent. You like,
Why
of
would
course, there's
anybody
the,
do it?
why would anybody? So who ends up doing it is the big players, and then they end up getting a big monopoly, and that doesn't help anybody either, right? Because
Mm.
that keeps things out. And then, so you get these small landlords, which are a huge contributor to the overall economics behind everything, backing out and saying,
Yeah.
nah, I'll go someplace where the fruit is a little more accessible. So,
Which is so unfortunate because Canada is very, very awesome in terms of, well,
yeah.
at least it could be very, very awesome to
Yes.
be an investor in, right?
Yeah.
In terms of healthcare system and education, like we've got some really good stuff over here,
Hmm.
and it is very unfortunate to see people move out. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm with you. I'm like, we're not moving anywhere. Our lives are here. I'd much prefer to work here
Yeah.
and do renovations and build things that are beautiful here, but just is challenging to do so. So
Yeah. I mean,
tell me about, so go
Alex,
ahead.
I'll tell you about some of the stats, right? Because we were on the
Yes,
topic of
please.
non-payment of rent.
Hmm.
Right now in the system, because we have crowdsourced orders, and when we look at just the non-payment of rent in Ontario alone, like being Ontario, and should you invest in here, we're looking at about $267 million of unpaid rent just from the
267 million?
$267 million of unpaid rent. And that's just from the orders of unpaid rent that we have in the system, where we only have, like, say, less than 10% of all of the orders that are available in the system in the last 4 years, from 2021 to 2025 today. So estimations wise, we're looking probably about a few billions of dollars of unpaid rent if you really do some of the extended math
That is
here.
absolutely wild.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
Think about what we could do with that money.
Hmm.
I could do a lot with that money at Open Room. You
Yeah,
could build more houses, and the
yeah.
government could get more
Tax revenue.
yeah, revenue from taxes, right?
Yeah,
Exactly. That
yeah.
is what is going on right now from hard stats perspective.
Oh, that's depressing. That is wild. That should go to the news. That is crazy. 167 million. That's 10%. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
looking, that's unreal. So let me ask you this, kind of changing gears a little bit. Let me ask you about your current portfolio. Currently, are you still bullish? Are you still investing currently? Have you built more of a portfolio here in Ontario since your initial experience?
No. The quick answer
No.
to that is no. A couple reasons. One is that I am traumatized, but two, the more reason is that I'm actually funneling money to bootstrap Open Room. So I don't
Mhm.
have additional cash to put into other orgs or to real estate right now. Right? There just isn't. And the kids, well, maybe
Yes.
they're the two startups outside of Open Room that I'm working on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've got no cash. I'm not a rich landlord by any means. A little background of my story: my family immigrated to Canada in 2000. I wasn't
Mhm.
even born in Canada. I was born in China, mainland China, and then we immigrated over here. And at the time, we were living in low income housing. So my mom didn't speak a word of English, and she still doesn't today. My dad is an electrician. And then 4 years after coming here, he bought a bungalow, and then in that bungalow, that basement apartment, he renovated himself because we couldn't afford anybody else. So he did it all himself, made a 2 bedroom, and then we always rented it out. So how I got started in this whole rental business is because he rented out his basement and I was writing rental receipts for him. One day in high school, he was like, "Do you want to do this? Let me show you how to do this." And that's how I got started. Our portfolio is really just my primary residence and a condo. We don't have much at all over here.
Good for you for like championing the cause, even despite it, because obviously you see that there's this like massive void. And so a lot of people, I think, after an experience of that, would be like, never again, don't want to talk about it, done with the conversation, see you later. And
Yeah.
instead, you harnessed it for good.
Well, how I see it is that when people call me to like super angry about what had happened to them, I tell them to channel that anger into something else. You can sit here and you can complain every single day, but where is that going to get you? You can hate on
Hmm.
politicians, you can hate on your tenants who had the unpaid rent, or hate on your landlord, but it's like, do something else with it. And that's what we had done. Yes, I was extremely traumatized. And how people go through their situations when they go through a tenancy dispute is that, yes, there's money involved, but it's actually traumatizing because there's the emotional, the physical, the mental stress that comes during that
Yes.
dispute. And that is something that you can't forget. You might be able
Hmm.
to forgive, but you can't forget. But
Yeah.
anyhow, so I always tell people, it's like, if you want to do something with us, it's like you can buy Open Room a coffee, like buy me a coffee for $3, right? And a lot of people like want to do that. Or it's like, hey, you know what? Write about your story, share it on Open Room, or share it with another, with the media, and do something about your situation so that you can help others not make the same mistakes.
I love that. I
Mhm.
love that. You know what? And I think that's a great message to kind of wrap us up here too. But before we go, I want to make sure that if anybody wants to get a hold of you or anybody wants to kind of contribute or help you champion your cause, how can they best do so? And how can they get in touch?
Well, they could one help us by uploading their orders online or conducting a free search. And if they have court orders or tribunal decisions that have rental debt on it, they can count on us to report it into the credit bureau so that we put it as their collections item and hit the credit history negatively. Okay.
Hmm. Is
Uh,
there a fee for that? Is there a
that
cost
one
to?
that one has a little bit of a fee to it. There's
Hmm.
also more components to it because we send messages, we have to verify it manually, and we have to calculate interest on top of it. Okay.
Hmm.
So that one has a fee, but then to do the search and to upload and share your court order, that one is free to do anytime.
Okay.
People can do it.
So is it almost like a rental collections agency type thing on the back end where it's like tenant so and so has not paid rent, their open room order comes in, somebody can go and pay open room to send them reminder messages of how much they owe. You guys will put it towards their credit that will negatively impact the tenant's credit and move forward. What's a fee for that approximately?
It is right now $88 per court order, no matter how many people are on that court order.
Hmm.
And
Have you
we are
seen?
caution to caveat to that is that we are not a collections agency, so we don't touch the
Mhm.
money thereafter. If your tenants want to pay back the rent, I'm gonna put you two together. You're gonna be looped in the conversations. We don't touch any of that money.
Okay, so for 89 bucks, you can have somebody's uh, you know, inquire or non-payment of rent reflected accurately on their credit. We're actually big advocates of that. If a tenant is paying rent, I believe that it should be positively affecting their credit.
Yes,
I think that's a
yes,
huge thing. Like, why not, right? Because
yes,
a lot of people's single largest expense is their credit, or sorry,
yes.
their rent.
The rent.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do rent rewards for the residents. So we work with the property management firms. And if they want to reward their tenants for being great because they abide by the lease agreement that was laid out back, when they signed the lease, then there are rent perks or retailer perks that we give them, as well as building your credit. So there's like a two-prong process to that. Yeah,
Very
absolutely.
cool. Very
Hmm.
cool.
But
Well,
if
I go ahead.
yeah, if your users are looking at how to get a hold of us, then it's if they want to laugh and learn, they can feel free to look us up on Instagram at OpenRoom HQ, and they're going to be able to find and laugh at all of my past mistakes. There are videos that have gone viral because I was just a dumb landlord, and come and learn so you don't make the same mistakes as I do.
No, I love it. I love it. Honestly, thank you so much for joining me today. I think you guys have done just such a remarkable job, and I wish you guys nothing but success in the future. And I know we'll be contributing. So, thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you very much, Alex.
All right.